She said, "We're done," like she was ordering coffee. I didn't beg. I didn't fight. I just walked out. Now she's discovering what real silence feels like, as her lover vanishes with her money and my empire grows. Sometimes the loudest response is no response at all. My name's Connor Walsh. I'm 44 years old, and I run Walsh Roasters, a small coffee company that supplies beans to about 15 cafes around Portland. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. I built it from scratch after leaving the corporate world, and for 12 years, Cassandra supported every early morning, every late delivery, every failed batch. Until she didn't. That Thursday started like any other. I was cupping a new Ethiopian blend in our home kitchen when she walked in, already dressed for her real estate showing. She poured herself instant coffee, instant, when we had 3 different single origins on the counter. "Connor," she said, stirring that awful powder in a hot water. "We need to talk." I set down my cupping spoon. "About what?" She looked at me with this strange calmness, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "I've been thinking. About us. About everything." She took a sip of that instant garbage. "I think we're done." Just like that. No emotion. No tears. Like canceling a subscription. I could have asked why. Could have pleaded. Could have thrown the whole cupping table across the room. Instead, I did something that clearly wasn't her script. I walked to the sink, rinsed my cup, grabbed my truck keys, and left. No words. No drama. Just the quiet click of the door behind me. She said we were done, so I walked away without a word. And from the stunned look on her face as I passed her, she wasn't ready for the silence I left behind. I drove to the roastery and spent the next 6 hours roasting beans, letting the familiar rhythm of the work steady my hands while my mind raced. The truth was, I felt this coming like a weather change. Late nights at networking events, new passwords on her devices, and Jack, her business mentor, who texted at all hours about investment opportunities. But I hadn't expected her to be so clinical about it. After everything we'd built, she delivered our ending like a business memo. What she didn't know was that I'd already seen the credit card statements, the hotel charges, the jewelry purchases that never made it home. I'd known for weeks. I just wanted to see if she'd have the decency to be honest. She didn't. The roastery became my sanctuary that first week. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd fire up the Probat roaster and lose myself in the rhythm of coffee beans tumbling in the drum. First crack. Second crack. The precise moment when heat transforms green beans into something extraordinary. My employees noticed the change. Sarah, my manager, found me there one morning, having worked through the night. "Boss," she said, setting down her keys, "you've roasted enough coffee to supply half of Oregon. Everything okay?" I sealed another batch, just staying ahead of orders. She didn't press, but I caught her exchanging glances with Miguel, our delivery driver. They knew something was wrong. In a business this small, secrets don't keep. My phone buzzed constantly. Cassandra's texts evolved from confused to angry to desperate. "Where are you?" "This is childish, Connor. At least tell me you're safe. We need to discuss the house, the business, everything. Jack thinks you're having a breakdown." Jack. There it was. Her business mentor was already weighing in on my mental state. I deleted each message without responding. On day 3, I made a decision. I drove to our bank and met with Thomas, our financial advisor for the past decade. He greeted me with his usual warmth until he saw my expression. "I need to separate my business accounts from any joint holdings," I told him. Immediately, his face grew serious. "Connor is everything. Please, Thomas. Just help me protect the roastery." He nodded, professional sympathy replacing friendly concern. "Let's look at your options." 2 hours later, Walsh Roasters was legally insulated from whatever came next. My grandfather started this business in 1962. I rebuilt it from bankruptcy. No way was I letting it become collateral damage in Cassandra's exit strategy. That evening, I finally checked into a hotel. Not fancy, just clean and quiet. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I'd been tracking mysterious hotel charges on Cassandra's credit card, here I was, charging my own room to escape my own home. I called my lawyer brother, Marcus, from the hotel phone. She ended it. I said without preamble. "Clean break." Her words. Marcus sighed. "How long have you known about the affair?" 6 weeks. Maybe more. "And you have proof?" "Credit cards. Hotel receipts. Plus, she basically admitted it by bringing up Jack in her texts. Good. Don't go home yet. Let her stew. The fact that she ended it works in your favor, especially if we can prove infidelity. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the generic landscape painting on the wall. 12 years of marriage, reduced to legal strategy and asset protection. But I felt oddly calm, like I'd already processed the grief weeks ago, while she was still pretending. I ordered room service, bad coffee, and a club sandwich, and made a list of what mattered. The business, my employees, my reputation, my dignity. Everything else was just inventory to be divided. 2 weeks into my hotel stay, I discovered something that changed everything. I'd gone back to the roastery late one night to retrieve my laptop when I noticed Cassandra's car in the parking lot. The office lights were off, but her silver Lexus sat there like a ghost. I almost left. Then I saw movement inside the building. Using my key, I entered through the back. The security system was already disabled. She must have used her code. I found her in my office, photographing documents with her phone. Financial records, client contracts, bank statements. Looking for something specific, I asked from the doorway. She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. For the first time since this started, she looked genuinely rattled. Connor, you scared me. I needed some paperwork. For taxes. Taxes aren't due for 8 months, Cass. She straightened, trying to regain composure. Jack says I need to understand our full financial picture. Community property, and all that. Washington isn't a community property state, I said calmly. And Jack isn't a lawyer, though I'm starting to wonder what else he isn't. Her face flushed. What's that supposed to mean? It means you might want to tell your businessmen that breaking and entering is a felony, even with a key code. This is my business too. No, I corrected, stepping into the room. It's not. Walsh Roasters predates our marriage by 3 years. My grandfather's name is on the incorporation documents, not yours. She set down her phone, and I saw tears forming. But something felt rehearsed about them. Connor, why are you being like this? We built this together. All those late nights, all those farmers markets. You mean the ones you stopped attending 2 years ago? She blinked. The tears vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. I need access to our accounts, she said, dropping the emotional act. You've locked me out of everything. Joint accounts remain joint. Business accounts were never shared. As for the house accounts, they're frozen pending legal review. On whose authority? Mine. And my attorney's. She grabbed her purse, anger replacing manipulation. Jack warned me you'd try to hide assets. Funny, I said. My forensic accountant warned me someone might try to steal them. She stormed past me, then paused at the door. You know what? I'm glad this is over. You care more about coffee beans than people. Maybe, I agreed. But coffee beans don't lie. After she left, I called the security company and had all the codes changed. Then I sat in my grandfather's old leather chair, surrounded by the smell of roasted coffee, and felt something lift from my shoulders. She'd shown her hand too early. Now I knew exactly what Jack was advising her to do. The next morning brought an unexpected ally. I was cupping a new Colombian batch when Margaret Walsh, my mother, walked into the roastery. At 72, she still moved like a force of nature. 34 messages from Cassandra, she announced, setting her purse on the cupping table, each more dramatic than the last. Want to tell me what's happening? I poured her a cup of the Colombian. She ended our marriage. Now she wants half the business. Mom took a slow sip, her expression unreadable. And this Jack person, her business mentor, though I suspect he's mentoring more than her portfolio. She set down her cup with deliberate precision. Your grandfather built this company during the Depression. Your father saved it in the 80s. You brought it back from bankruptcy. No jumped-up real estate agent is touching our family legacy. Mom, you don't have to. Hush. I've already called Harrison Bradley. Remember him? Handled our lawsuit against that distributor in '95. He's expecting you at 2. Harrison Bradley wasn't just any lawyer. He was Seattle's premier divorce attorney for high-net-worth cases. Having him on retainer would cost more than most people's annual salary. I can't afford. I can. Mom interrupted. Consider it protecting my investment. Besides, I never liked Cassandra. Too much perfume. Not enough coffee knowledge. That afternoon, Harrison's office felt like stepping into old money. Leather, mahogany, and the subtle power of established wealth. Harrison himself was pushing 80 but sharp as fresh ground espresso. "Connor," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Your mother filled me in. Business predates marriage. Attempted asset reconnaissance. Suspected adultery. We can work with this." For 2 hours, we mapped out strategy. Harrison had seen every dirty trick in the book. By the end, I felt like I had an armor-plated defense. "One thing," Harrison added as I stood to leave. "This Jack fellow, we might want to investigate his business practices. Real estate mentors who advise asset seizure often have interesting histories. You think he's done this before?" "People rarely develop new playbooks, Connor. They just find new players." That evening, I met Marcus at a bar downtown. My brother looked tired. Criminal law wore on him differently than corporate battles. "Harrison Bradley," he said, raising his beer. "Mom doesn't mess around. She's protective of the roastery. She's protective of you." Cassandra made a mistake crossing Margaret Walsh. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus said, "You know what's interesting? I ran Jack Turner through her system. 3 restraining orders from ex-girlfriends. 2 settled lawsuits involving business partnerships gone wrong. Guy's got a pattern." Harrison mentioned something similar. "Be careful, Connor. Men like that don't like losing." I thought about Cassandra breaking into my office, photographing documents in the dark. Neither do I. The private investigator's report landed on Harrison's desk like a bomb. Jack Turner wasn't just a real estate mentor with a sketchy past. He was a professional predator. The file detailed 6 women over 15 years, all following the same pattern. Successful husbands, family businesses, messy divorces where Jack emerged with a finder's fee from the wife's settlement. "He's done this before," Harrison said, sliding the photos across his desk. "Usually targets women married to small business owners. Positions himself as a financial advisor, creates dependency, then orchestrates the divorce to maximize the wife's take." I studied the images. Jack at charity galas, business mixers, always with a different woman on his arm. Cassandra's just another mark. Looks that way, though she might not realize it yet. "What do we do with this?" Harrison smiled, the kind of smile that made opposing lawyers nervous. "We subpoena his financial records. Every communication with Cassandra. Every hotel receipt. Every business meeting. If he's coaching her on asset seizure, that's conspiracy to commit fraud." That afternoon, I met with Margaret at the roastery. She was testing our newest Ethiopian blend, making notes in her leather journal. Harrison called. She said without looking up, "Says we've got them cornered. Jack's been doing this for years, Mom. Cassandra's not his first." She finally met my eyes. "I know this hurts, Connor, but she made her choice. Now we protect what matters. The business. The truth." That evening, Cassandra showed up at the roastery. Not breaking in this time, just standing outside the locked doors, pressing the buzzer repeatedly. I watched her on the security monitor for a full minute before walking out to meet her. "We need to talk," she said immediately. "Without lawyers. That ship sailed when you broke into my office." I was confused. "Jack said." I know exactly what Jack said. What he's been saying to women like you for 15 years. Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" I handed her a copy of the investigator's summary. Watched her scan the pages, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "This can't be right," she whispered. "Jack loves me. He said what you needed to hear. Just like he told Patricia Reeves in 2018 and Monica Chun in 2015. And..." "Stop." Her voice cracked. "Just stop." We stood there in the parking lot, the Seattle drizzle starting to fall. For the first time in months, I saw the woman I'd married 12 years ago. Vulnerable, lost, realizing she'd been played. "Connor," she said finally. "What do I do?" "That's not my problem anymore, Cass. You ended this, remember? I'm just protecting what's mine." I walked back inside, leaving her standing in the rain. Part of me felt cruel, but the larger part remembered her photographing my financial documents in the dark, planning to dismantle everything my family had built. She'd chosen her path. Now she'd walk it alone. The text came at 2 a.m. "He's gone. Took everything." See, I stared at my phone, debating whether to respond. 3 days had passed since I'd shown Cassandra the truth about Jack. Now, apparently, he'd vanished with whatever she'd given him access to. Against my better judgment, I called her. "He cleaned out our investment account," she said without preamble, voice hollow. 40,000. Have my passwords, my authorization codes. The bank says I approve the transfers. You probably did. He's good at getting signatures. Silence. Then, I'm an idiot. I didn't disagree. Instead, I asked, have you called the police? What's the point? You were right. I gave him access to everything. Thought he was protecting me from you. The irony was thick. She trusted a con man over her husband of 12 years. What are you going to do? I don't know. My lawyer says the divorce is still proceeding. Says I have no grounds now, especially with Jack gone. Connor, I'm sorry. The words hung between us. Months too late, but genuine. I know. I said finally. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust. I know that too. The next morning, Harrison called with updates. Turner's in the wind. Probably halfway to Costa Rica by now. But here's the interesting part. He left a trail. Bank records show he's been siphoning money from Cassandra for months. Small amounts, but consistent. She never noticed. Love is blind. Con artists count on that. That afternoon, I had a meeting that surprised everyone, including me. Cassandra's attorney requested a settlement conference. Not to fight, but to surrender. We met in Harrison's conference room. Cassandra looked smaller somehow, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual power suits. My client is prepared to accept a minimal settlement, her lawyer began. The house equity, her car, and her personal retirement account. No claim on the business, no alimony request. Harrison raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Cassandra spoke up. I destroyed my marriage for a man who saw me as a payday. I'm not taking that mistake out on Connor's family business. We spent 2 hours working through details. Clean, simple, fair. When we finished, Cassandra asked to speak with me privately. I know you'll never forgive me, she said once we were alone. And I'm not asking you to. But I want you to know, the last 12 years weren't all fake. I did love you. I just lost my way. What happened, Cass? Really? She thought for a moment. I got bored. Stupid, right? You were steady, reliable, passionate about your work. And somehow I convinced myself that meant boring. Jack made me feel exciting. Turned out I was just excited to be conned. We shook hands at the door. Professional, distant, final. Take care of the roastery, she said. Your grandfather would be proud of what you've built. As she walked away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger or sadness, but relief. The truth was out. The pretense was over. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. That evening, Mom joined me at the roastery for a cupping session. We worked in comfortable silence, tasting notes of chocolate and cherry in the new blend. You did good, she said finally. Your father would be proud too. It doesn't feel like winning. It's not supposed to. But you protected what mattered. And you kept your dignity. Sometimes that's all the victory you need. Outside, Seattle rain drummed against the windows. Inside, surrounded by the aroma of fresh coffee and family legacy, I finally felt like I was home. 3 months after signing the divorce papers, Walsh Roasters landed our biggest contract yet, supplying specialty beans to a national hotel chain. The deal would triple our production capacity and add 15 new jobs. Mom insisted we celebrate. Walsh Family Specialty Selection. She read from the contract, raising her glass of bourbon. Your grandfather would be over the moon. The roastery team gathered around our cupping table, champagne flowing. Sarah, my manager, teared up during her toast. When everything went sideways with Cassandra, Connor never missed a delivery, never compromised quality, never brought his personal storm into this building. She nodded at me. That's leadership. Later that night, cleaning up after everyone left, I found myself alone with Elise Chun, our new marketing director. She joined us 2 months ago, bringing fresh energy and perspective to our brand strategy. Quite a milestone, she said, collecting empty glasses. National distribution is game-changing. Couldn't have done it without your pitch deck. The sustainability angle sealed it. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Team effort. Working side by side in comfortable silence, I realized how easy things had become with Elise. No games, no hidden agenda. Just 2 people who respected each other's work. Connor, she said suddenly, I know about what happened with your ex-wife. People talk. I just wanted to say I admire how you handled it. With dignity. Some might call it coldness. I call it strength. Walking away instead of lashing out takes real courage. The conversation shifted to lighter territory. Coffee origins. Travel plans for our upcoming sourcing trip to Ethiopia. But something had changed between us. A door opening, maybe. The next morning, Harrison called with unexpected news. Cassandra wanted to meet. We chose neutral ground, a downtown coffee shop, ironically not one that served my beans. She was already waiting when I arrived, looking different. Simpler clothes, less makeup, a calmness I hadn't seen in years. "I've been in therapy," she said without preamble, working through why I was so vulnerable to someone like Jack. And turns out I have issues with authentic success versus performative success. Your family built something real. I was chasing Instagram moments. I sipped my coffee. Not bad, but over-roasted. "I'm leaving Seattle," she continued, taking a job with a nonprofit in Minneapolis. Real estate for low-income families. She slid an envelope across the table. "But first, I wanted to return this." Inside was a check for $25,000. "It's what I could recover from what Jack took," she explained. "Not everything, but I wanted to make amends somehow. You don't owe me money, Cass. I owe you closure. And I owe myself the chance to leave with my integrity partially intact." As we said goodbye, she asked, "Are you seeing someone? You seem lighter." "Not officially, but there's someone. It's different. Honest." "Good," she said sincerely. "You deserve that." Walking back to the roastery, I felt the last weight lift. Not because of the money, but because we'd both finally found our truth. The Ethiopian sourcing trip changed everything. 10 days, for growing regions, and endless cupping sessions with local farmers. I'd invited Elise along to document the journey for a marketing campaign. What started as a business trip evolved into something more profound. "I've never seen anyone so happy to be covered in coffee dust," she laughed as we hiked through the Sidamo Highlands with a third-generation grower. "It's in my blood," I admitted. "Walsh men have been obsessed with coffee since 1946. That's what makes your beans special. You actually care about the journey from seed to cup." In Yirgachev, we visited a women's cooperative that Mom had supported for years. The lead farmer, Marta, pulled me aside while Elise photographed the processing station. "Your grandfather brought my mother her first washing station equipment," she said. "Now you bring this bright-eyed woman to see our work. The Walsh legacy continues." "She's our marketing director," I clarified. Marta smiled knowingly. "The way she watches you when you're not looking says otherwise." That night, sharing dinner under the stars, Elise and I talked until dawn. About family legacies, about betrayal and healing, about finding meaning in work. When the sun rose over the mountains, something had shifted between us. "I've never met anyone who rebuilds instead of destroys when life falls apart," she said as we watched the morning light touch the coffee trees. "After what Cassandra did, most men would have burned everything down. My grandfather taught me something important. Coffee plants can grow in poor soil and survive drought, but they only thrive in the right conditions. People are the same way." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. "I think I'm in the right conditions now." Back in Seattle, we kept things professional at the roastery. But after hours, we built something authentic. Dinners where we actually talked. Weekend hikes where we existed without performing for social media. Quiet evenings planning the company's future. 3 months after Ethiopia, I took her to meet Mom. Margaret Walsh, never one to mince words, studied Elise for a full minute before nodding approvingly. "You actually drink his coffee black," she observed. "Cassandra always added so much cream, I wondered why she bothered." "The complexity gets lost with additives," Elise replied. "Connor's medium roasts stand on their own." Mom smiled at me over a cup. Message received. Later, walking through the original roastery building where my grandfather had started everything, Elise stopped at the vintage roaster we kept as a monument. "You rebuilt from ashes once," she said. "With the business, I mean. Everything worth having requires maintenance. Businesses, relationships, trust. I'm not afraid of the work," she said simply. That night, as Seattle rain drummed against the windows, I realized something profound. Cassandra's betrayal, while painful, had cleared the path for something authentic. The collapse of what I thought I wanted had created space for what I actually needed. Coffee, family, honest connection. The Walsh legacy would continue after all. Walsh Roaster's 20th anniversary coincided with my first anniversary with Elise. The symmetry felt right somehow. The business my grandfather started entering a new chapter alongside my own fresh start. We marked the occasion with a ceremony at the original roastery building, now transformed into our company museum and training center. Mom presided over the event with characteristic precision, directing staff and greeting longtime customers with equal command. At 83, Margaret Walsh remained the family's true north, unwavering, formidable, essential. Your grandfather's portrait keeps watching me, Elise whispered as we mingled with guests. I swear his eyes follow me around the room. He's making sure you're treating his legacy right, I replied. Don't worry, you passed inspection weeks ago. The ceremony itself was modest. A plaque commemorating 20 years, speeches from original employees, a special anniversary blend to be released nationwide. But the meaning ran deeper. This wasn't just about business survival. It was about family resilience. Marcus brought his kids, who'd grown impressively since I'd last seen them. Uncle Connor, my niece Abby asked, is it true you once slept in the roastery for a whole week? 3 days, I corrected, when the first commercial roaster arrived from Germany. Dad says you slept here during the divorce too. Kids, brutally honest. Sometimes work is the best medicine. Later, as guests enjoyed coffee cocktails and dessert pairings, I found Mom in Grandfather's old office, studying the framed black and white photos of Walsh Roaster's early days. He would be proud, she said without turning, not just to the business, of you, for the national contracts, for keeping your dignity when it would have been easier to lose it. She finally faced me. I watched Jack Turner's sentencing online yesterday. 15 years for investment fraud across 7 states. Cassandra testified against him. I hadn't known, hadn't wanted to know. She did the right thing. Mom continued. Eventually. But you did the right thing immediately. That's the Walsh way. After the ceremony, Elise and I walked through the production floor, now quiet after hours. The massive Probat roasters stood like sleeping giants, waiting for tomorrow's beans. Sometimes I still can't believe how everything unfolded, I admitted. How losing what I thought I wanted led to finding what I actually needed. My father had a saying about that, Elise said. Sometimes you have to get burned to appreciate the perfect roast. Sounds like a coffee man. Engineer, actually. But the principle applies everywhere. She laced her fingers through mine. When you walked away from Cassandra that day, you weren't just leaving her. You were walking toward your authentic future. Surrounded by the rich aroma of freshly roasted beans, I realized she was right. Silence had been my strength. And in that strength, I found my voice. The newspaper headline caught me off guard. Seattle Coffee King expands to international markets. The photo showed me and Elise at the Milan Coffee Expo, standing beside our award-winning Ethiopian blend display. We looked happy, focused, aligned. Nothing like the promotional shots Cassandra used to stage for social media. Coffee King, Mom scoffed, sliding the newspaper across the breakfast table. Your grandfather would have something to say about that title. Probably that kings sit on thrones while roasters stand at the drum. I replied, making her laugh. 2 years had passed since the divorce finalized. In that time, Walsh Roasters had doubled its production, added 37 employees, and opened satellite roasteries in Portland and San Francisco. The business was thriving, but more importantly, it was authentic, built on quality and relationships rather than image. Elise joined us, setting down fresh cups of our Yurgachev single origin. The Milan contracts are confirmed. 6 high-end Italian hotel chains will serve Walsh beans exclusively. International distribution, Mom mused. Your grandfather never even considered it. Thought Seattle was conquest enough. Different world now, I said. But same values. After breakfast, Elise and I walked to the original roastery. The morning shift was already in full swing, the familiar percussion of beans tumbling and drums providing the soundtrack to our legacy. Sarah, who'd been promoted from manager to operations director after her exceptional work on the Milan expansion, met us with production reports. The new apprenticeship program has 15 applicants, she announced, all from coffee-growing regions. The scholarship fund covered their travel expenses. The program had been Elise's idea, bringing young people from coffee-producing countries to learn our methods, then return home to improve local production. Coffee diplomacy, she called it. In my office, I found a small package with unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a newspaper clipping about Walsh Roasters expansion and a brief note. You built something real. Congratulations. See, no bitterness, no manipulation, just acknowledgement. That evening, we hosted a dinner for the entire staff, over 60 people now. Standing to make a toast, I looked around at the faces of those who'd shared this journey. 22 years ago, I took over a struggling family business with 3 employees and more debt than customers. Today, we're discussing Milan and Tokyo. But success isn't measured in market expansion. It's measured in integrity, in walking away from what doesn't serve your values, in building something authentic, even when it's harder. I raise my glass to the Walsh legacy, not just roasting beans, but cultivating what matters. Later, as Elise and I walked home through Seattle's gentle rain, she asked about the package I'd received. A ghost from the past, I explained, offering peace. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she hadn't ended things that day? I thought about it, the rain tapping gently on my umbrella. I would have eventually seen the truth, but it might have broken me rather than strengthened me. So, her trying to end things was actually the beginning. I squeezed her hand. Sometimes silence speaks volumes, and sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make. The rain continued, washing Seattle clean, while we walked toward home, toward future, toward the life I'd found when I chose dignity over drama.